So nervous.
You're nervous right now?
Oh, just incredibly nervous.
Beka, are you nervous right now?
No.
Oh, you should be, because this interview is going to be
I love
intense.
super raw, intense conversations. Like we could talk about the deep, dark secrets of our marriages and it'd be great. And then later my husband would be like, shut your mouth.
Let's not go there.
Awesome.
David and I were just actually having a conversation that was pretty deep and dark and scary right before this on my drive home.
Yeah, I was actually breaking up with him from our business relationship. Oh, we're recording.
Oh.
Hey. Yeah, right. Hey, yeah. No, it's awesome.
So you broke the news to him that we're now going to be partners?
Yeah. So I was hoping to do that. I wanted a live reaction. I wanted tears.
Wait, no, because normally, Beka, what happens is I am taking applications for a new best friend. And so on these interviews, this is like a part of my interview process to get a new best friend.
Okay, so I'm interviewing you guys to see which one of you I want to be best friends.
Well, but here's the thing, Becca. Here's the problem though, right? Like Stu has to put out like stuff because nobody wants to be his best friend, right? So he's got to like put out like disclaimers and like, I will pay you this much. Hey Stu, why don't you open the show up? Why don't we do that? Let's do that.
What's up, everybody? This is Filling the Storehouse podcast. And if you guys don't know, we have Beka Shea on with us today.
Beka.
And we're going to have an amazing conversation. We don't know where it's going yet because this is like the third or fourth time we've actually tried to have this podcast because we keep on canceling on her because our other jobs kind of keep on getting in the way. And I love the Navy, but it's really getting in the way of our podcasting. So
they're so demanding. They act like they own you or something.
Right? It's so ridiculous that they require all this work from us.
Beka, you are amazingly gracious, and Stu, we the last couple of weeks, his command went through a change of command, my command went through a change of command. We were actually going to record the first part of this from his car because there was sit reps that had to be released. Like, of course, it happens at 1400 and we have an interview for 1 hour after that. So, but you being prior military, it's a pleasure to have you on the show and really looking forward to hearing some of the amazing things that you're doing. And I think it's also important for our listeners, you can do podcasts. You can write books, you can start businesses, do real estate and all this kind of stuff while you're active duty. You may have to eat crow a couple of times because you cancel on important people. But besides that, like this, you can do this stuff. This is possible. It's totally possible to accelerate and do the things that you love while also doing something you love, like serving your country. So thank you for your grace and graciousness. And accepting this
grace and graciousness.
Oh man, just keep piling it on, man.
And you're the one that's the big deal that we're talking about, Beka. So over to you.
I know, it's the best podcast I've had. So I'm Beka Shea. I am a real estate investor, maybe recovering real estate investor. No, I still have rentals. I started about 7 years ago when my third daughter was born. I was in corporate America, so I did the military route for 4 years. I actually, I thought I was going to be a pilot, and my eyesight disqualified me, which they didn't figure out until I actually got to flight school, which you know how many physicals I had before then, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And now, well, what's interesting is I told the story at Flip Hacking Live last year, and it wasn't until I was putting the puzzle pieces together that I really saw God's movement throughout my life. Like there's no reason I should have gone to flight school. But because I did, I was roommates with Bill Allen, who now runs 7-Figure Flipping at flight school. And, we kind of came together. I met him. My roommate from college was the one who introduced me to him. And then we went our separate ways for a little bit and then came back together through real estate investing. And it's just been this kind of really crazy, magical reconnection. And I was out there, I was like, wow, the chances that these things would have lined up to put me in this place today is not chance, I don't think. So anyway, real estate investing, sorry for that digression. I've rehabbed about
that's great.
I've rehabbed about 60 houses. I've wholesaled about 120 deals. I stopped doing that last year in order to pursue some kind of evolve to the next phase of where I wanted to be, and took a left turn into 7-figure flipping and heading up the membership program. So,
yeah, I think it's you hear about those kind of like chance interactions, those like chance happenings all the time, and I 100% agree that it's God driven. I mean, David and I were roommates at college, and our names just kind of lined up. The G's, Grazier and Gutierrez, we became roommates, and he just wanted to stick with me ever since. Like after like the first semester of our freshman year, like we could kind of make a choice on where, who we wanted to room with. And like, he was always just like kind of grabbing on, like, can I
trying to beat him off,
please? I was like, no, dude, go somewhere else. And like, I felt sorry for him. So we just continued to be roommates for 4 years, and we just continued to talk. And then like, we talked about real estate, we talked about businesses, and then I kind of dragged him along again. I was like, hey dude, let's start a business. And kind of went.
I don't know. You sound like the troublemaker in this.
That's strange that all these conversations, I don't really remember them being that way, but I'll give you that, Stu. No, it's and it's funny, Beka, because we talk about it all the time, but one of the tenets of our business is faith, and this podcast is about faith. And the one we just put out, we had Stu's sister and brother-in-law and the whole thing. I mean, he's they're missionaries, and so I think that there's a huge connection there. And I do think God put, Storehouse was a thing in God's mind way before it was in our mind, right? And then Pastor Rick Warren talks a lot about, I don't know if you read his book, Purpose Driven Life, but he talks about EGRs, extra grace required. And so that's what Stu is to me. He's the guy that God put in my life. There it is. Look, he's the guy that God put in my life to help me to grow patience and help me to grow compassion. Because like, if you just hang out with Stu for a little bit, you'll realize like you really feel sorry for the dude. And so you have to, build that grace. So
he gives me grace and graciousness.
Do you have to do sensitivity training with him? Like one of my buddies in ROTC, he should have been a Marine, right? And his roommate, another guy in ROTC, taped him to a chair and made him watch ballet one time and was like, this is sensitivity training.
That's awesome. No, Stu, he's a pretty sensitive guy, and oftentimes will choose ballet over other things, potentially does dress up, loves tiaras, prefers a tiara over a crown.
I'm sorry, wait, who just had the change of command? Can we put this out to your unit?
Yeah, that was me. And I want my sailors to know that you can show compassion to anybody, and you should to everybody, even those that are like the worst.
Hey, dude, I wear tiaras because I have a 5.5-year-old little girl, and we play dress up all the time, and it's a lot of fun. And
I have a daughter too, and I get it. No, it's good. But this isn't about you and your tiaras. We did a show where that was the highlight.
You had your moment.
You had your moment. This is Beka's moment.
Beka's moment. That's right.
All right. So what are we going to talk about today?
So Beka, you mentioned, before we get into the specifics of the things that you've done and what you've gotten into, like what was the why that drove, the decision to flip all those houses, do the wholesales, and then ultimately get out of that and go a different direction?
No, this to me is super interesting because right now as part of the membership, like one of the cornerstones of 7-figure flipping is these small group accountability sessions. We run them 4 times a year. And they grew out of just a passion project of mine. It's a thing that's really close to my heart. And so I started running them on the side by myself. And then, I grab a couple people, hey, you want to meet with me once a week? And then that grew to like 20 people. And then, more. I think in October, we had like 140 some people, right, going through these. But the magic is in that like 5 to 6 person group. And the thing that we start them with is this, I talked about it at the veterans event, DVPGA, because I can't come up with a catchy, like, phrase to go with it. And I have tried this starting with your dream, this far out dream, and working it back into actions. And I know you want to go down that route, and we'll talk a little bit more, but the thing that I've realized over this 7-year journey has been the reason why you start is probably not your real driving reason. The reason why you think you start this. A lot of people, like, for example, for me, I was a mechanical engineer, like senior engineer, respected in my company, making 110 to 120K a year. And so for me to say financial freedom would have been silly. Like I had what I needed financially. But for me, it was more time freedom and being my own boss is what I thought I wanted. Like if I could just do that. Well, if you dig one level down to that, I should have been happy just flipping 3 houses a year. Why did I want to do 12? Why did I start wholesaling? Why did I start picking up rentals? So that as I went through the journey a little bit, that why didn't hold up, that, I'm doing this for time freedom or to be my own boss. Cause it ended up being, even now, like I'm a workaholic. I can't help it. I like work. I'm not going to work 20 hours a week and just sit on my butt. It's just not part of my programming, but I thought it was when I started. And then things got tough. Like, we grew and we scaled, and I hit a point where I couldn't unlock the puzzle. And I had to step back again and say, like, why am I doing this? What is this about? What's the purpose? What's the point of all this? And it's funny because Bill had said this week, I joined 7-figure flipping when I had rehabbed 6 houses and I wanted to grow to 12, to 1 a month. And in our first meeting, it was like in July, we sit down and I'm in this room with all these people and they're like, I want to do $1 million. And then the next guy's like, I did $1 million last year. This year we're doing 2. And like, it's going around the room like this, right? And I said, when is it enough? Like, you do $1 million this year, next year you want to do 2. You do 2 the year after that, you want to do 4. And you give me these stories about, like, it's not for me, it's for my team. I'm like, why are you doing this? And I've been chewing on this nonstop for, years now. And so I wanted to share with you, I posted this thing within our mastermind group. And I think this sums it up. This is what I've learned over the past couple of years. You may not have realized it yet, but every single one of you is building something for the joy of building it. It's not about the annual revenue target. It's about being the prime mover of something greater than yourself. And that, I realize, is my why. Like, it could be rehabbing, it could be wholesaling, marketing. Right now it's running this membership program. It's being the prime mover of something that's bigger than me. That was a very long-winded answer.
No, that was perfect. Stu, go ahead. But I have a lot of questions from that. But
yeah,
you, Stu.
It resonates so well with what we're doing. And we talked to Bill about it on his podcast, and we asked the question a lot, like, what's your why? And Bill's response was very similar to yours. It's like, well, it's changed over time. Like, my why was first, honestly, it was about money, right? Like, I want to make more money. And then it became kind of like a time freedom thing. And now it's more like impact and leadership. And we're kind of going through that same thing right now. We're a little bit, behind Bill's level, but, we're kind of on that same path of, for us, I don't think it really ever was honestly about money. Like, we're not like same thing. Like, we're making good money. Like, we're commanders in the Navy, right? We're going to retire after 20 years. We're going to get a good paycheck. We can live off of our retirement because we both live kind of well below our means, and that's all we need. And for us, it's been more about like giving and serving, and like the more money we make, the more we can give away and make an impact. And what we're also finding is we're kind of worried about hiring people, but the more that we've started to hire people, we've really enjoyed the leadership aspect of that, and like building a team and running a team, and like, and most, I guess all of our team isn't military, and just like being leaders with then that small little team space has been like super fun for us. And
and you get to pick the people on your team, right? In the military, you don't get to pick who's on your team.
Yeah, I didn't get to pick my roommate for 4 years, so that was.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think Casey would appreciate you saying that about him, Stu. If you're listening, we had another roommate. No, and what you said too, in both of you, it really makes two things I really want to highlight to our listeners, because we harp on it so much, is your why. Your why is never your why. Like you don't, it's not like a checklist, right? Oh, why established, next step, right? Like that's not the way it works, and it shouldn't work that way, because then you're not growing, you're not maturing. So I think that's an excellent point that you made about, 7 years? It's been 7 years going now that you're refining your why and coming to new conclusions, and you're mature enough to know that 7 years from now, your why could potentially be vastly different. And the every step in developing that, I think, is an incredible point. And then that light bulb moment that you came through on that post, where highlighting that it's about the creating and the building. I think Stu touched on it as well, but what an amazing point. And I think why it's so important is when you get someone to shift their focus and their mindset, and to realize, like I had a moment with Bill on our podcast. I told him that why something he said resonated with me to help me realize why I love single family home investing over potentially building large syndications. But what you just said right there, it helps you to shift your mindset and think, okay, I do love this. I love creating teams. I love leading. And when you get the number thing out of your head, so Stu and I, we have about 5 different businesses right now that we are trying to, and one that we just are getting approval from Wisconsin for the name, and we're working on the EIN, and there's 4 others that we're looking at building. And it's all about building those teams and providing for other folks. And there's never been a number tied to that. And so I couldn't even tell you what my number is.
Like whatever, a money number, right?
A money number.
Yeah.
And I think you putting words to that really just helped me. It really helped me to realize, that's it, because you struggle through it. Like, why am I doing this? What is my bottom line? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the world measures bottom line by bottom lines on a bank account, and that's not what it is. And the creating the teams thing is a great point. So thank you for that. That was awesome.
Yeah. Now I would say, I know a lot of people who get into it and they love leading. I'm one of them. But the lesson I learned the hard way is, like, you have to be profitable too. And no matter what business you start, like, that's at the end of the day, in order for you to serve other people, you have to take care of your own house first. That was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. Even the funniest thing is, though, even though I saw other people go through it, one of my friends said this week, he said, the lessons you pay for are the ones you learn. Like, you just watch them. You're like, man, that's a good lesson. I'm not going to do that. But so that to me also is to anybody out there who's like, yeah, I want to lead a team. It'd be great. Well, you're the best leader when you make sure that you're profitable too. And I say that because I love people so much. Like, I'm a relationship person, that I often would hold on to one employee way past the point where they were effectively, I would, the Mother Teresa style of leadership of, they're a project. They have so much potential. If I could just unlock it, if I could be the leader who unlocks it. But at the same point, by holding on to that employee too long, I then did a disservice to all the other employees. So that's like a random side advice.
That's not random, though. That you touched on that point in your talk during the Veterans Live, and you were talking about accountability. Mm-hmm. And you said accountability is not this, like, when I'm holding Stu accountable, or when I ask Stu to hold me accountable, it's not like a punishment. It is an ownership on my part, an acknowledgement of my ownership to be better. And I forgot the word you used, but you're like, I'm helping you. I'm cheerleading. Yes. I'm cheerleading you to do that. And I love that, because there is a responsibility in that person to unlock their own potential.
Yeah.
I've been trying to tell Stu for so long. I'm like, Stu, you are amazing. You can do great things. You just have to try.
Are you partners with him for his potential? Because
We'll talk about that one later, when
Yeah.
listen,
off.
best hiring advice I ever got was past success is indicative of future performance. So I don't know.
On a serious note, I feel that so David and I separately were doing real estate investing. Like, he was doing some stuff, I was doing some stuff, and I can honestly say that both of our real estate investing careers have like shot up like 10 times after we became like business partners. I mean, we'd always been like, great best friends. I mean, well, he's kind of on the fence. Like, I'm still out there looking for a best friend, but really good friends. And we had our own separate investing stuff going on. But once we started kind of like deciding to make that next jump, become business partners, hold each other accountable, like, ask those questions, ask follow up, and like our business has grown tremendously together and holding each other accountable. And there's something to that, right?
Well, that's a good thing, about partnerships. I've heard Bill say it many times, and like 1 + 1 can't equal 2. Like, if you're going to be partners with someone, 1 + 1 has to equal 4. It can't just be doubling what you could achieve.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the accountability stuff a little bit. That's your bread and butter within the 7-figure flipping. You guys have this big mastermind group, all, super successful real estate investors. And within that space, you've kind of created these accountability groups. So if you could just kind of talk about how that looks, what it does. And if you have any like cool success stories or anything like that, like I'd love to kind of hear about that.
So many good ones.
So many, yeah. I'm
well,
sure.
For me, the thing is, I think as entrepreneurs, we tend to be, now, former military, I think we are much better at controlling our ADHD. Like, we've been forced to learn how to focus ourselves to accomplish something. But a lot of non-military entrepreneurs are just a lot of ideas and not a lot of substance, right? Like, I want to do this thing, I'm going to do this thing, but without the actions to back it up. And it's not that they are incapable of taking the actions, they just need help. It's like, it's a muscle that they haven't used, right? And they just need to train it. So we start with this dream. Like, everybody comes in and we talk about like, what's your dream? And the kind of easy story I always tell people is like, we start with a dream and then we clarify it into a vision. Dreams are hazy, visions are crisp. So a dream's like, I want to own a home today, or I want to be a real estate investor, right? That's really vague. There's so many ways that you can invest in real estate. So a vision would be, yeah, I want to be a rehabber and I want to do 6 houses a year. That's like a vision. 5 years from now, I've never flipped a house. I'd love to be doing like 3 to 6 rehabs every year. That's a vision. That's tangible, and you can like say done or not done, right? 5 years from now, you can put that on your calendar. Like, did you flip 6 houses this year?
Right.
And then we back it out, because my strong suit is logistics. I realized I should have been in the supply corps, but I didn't know that was a thing in ROTC. They don't tell you about the supply side, like the little mafia within the Navy. But anybody in logistics knows, like, you start with the end in mind and then you back it down to what do you have to do tomorrow. So 5 years from now, you want to flip 6 houses, and you might want to say like, okay, but what do I actually have to do? Let's put a stake in the ground 12 months from now. What am I going to have accomplished 12 months from now? Well, I'm going to rehab a house, like whatever today is, July 2020 and July 2021, I will have rehabbed 1 house. And then you break that down into 3 or 4. We talk about like rocks or OKRs or 90-day goals. They're all the same concept because it works. So you break it down in these kind of like quarterly cycles, or the 12-week year. That's kind of the book that really lit my fire with accountability groups. And just say, like, if I was going to flip a house 1 year from now, if I wanted to rehab a house, what do I have to do to make that happen? I'd say the first thing you would want to do is learn. Like if you know nothing about it, maybe over the next 90 days, you say, I'm going to commit an hour a day, 5 days a week to getting educated, right? So over 12 weeks, I don't know, what's 12 times 5, 60 hours. I'm going to do 60 hours worth of education around rehabbing a house. And you can very clearly say at the end of 90 days, did I do 60 hours or not? And then you back that off even one more, like, all right, so my actions every week are 5 hours of education. And you would time block that out and say, you know, when am I going to get my 5 hours in? And then the linchpin is finding an accountability partner. So I forget what the number is, but it's basically like, just like writing your goal down makes you incrementally more likely to achieve it, right? So if I just wrote down, I'm going to get 60 hours of education in real estate education in the next 12 weeks, and I write that down, let's say that makes me like 30% likely to achieve that goal. If I tell somebody about it, if I'm like, hey, Stu, I am committing to, 60 hours, and you're like, that's cool. I mean, there's no follow-up action there, right? I just said it out loud, but I'm still much more likely, because in my head, I always know, I told Stu I was going to do this thing. He might remember, he might ask me, I'm going to check on. But if you actually commit to someone, if I said, Stu, do you think we could talk once a week? Like I'll send you a text, or you send me a text Monday morning to just make sure that I did my 5 hours, you're 95% more likely to achieve that goal. So, they've done a ton of research on this stuff. And kind of when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, I'm not going to show up and be like, oh, I didn't do 5 hours.
Oh, dang. There's actually, so I think it was I think it was Best Ever Conference, which is like a multi-family kind of syndication conference. And Brandon Turner, Bigger Pockets guy, spoke at it. And he spoke exactly on this. And he had the little graph and the accountability and stuff like that. And I think the statistic was, one of them was pretty interesting, because it actually went down, where I think it was if you tell somebody, if you post on social media your goal, like, hey, I'm going to buy 50 houses this year on like Facebook.
Yeah.
That actually the numbers go down, because like you get this like high of everyone, like, immediate high fives, pumping you up, but then there's no accountability to it. There's no follow up to that. And versus just like writing it down and following up on a daily basis. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, but 100% would agree with like the accountability stuff. I mean, we hold each other accountable. I mean, I hold him accountable like every single day. He doesn't follow up on anything.
Someone's going to fact check this podcast and be like, it was 92%, or like, look, I didn't actually prep for this. So
how dare you? You're supposed to have the exact number ready for us.
No, but all you have to really do is find that person. And so I will say, like, when I know, and usually it's not, because Stu and I are not the type of guys, and you touched on this as well with, hey, our goal is not to not work, right? Our goal is not to be to a point where I don't know what I would do. I'm definitely that like kind of squirrel kind of guy that's just like, bam, that's over there. And, so my goal is not to sit around the house and have some kind of financial independence so that I'm not doing anything. It's that creating piece, which again, you put words to. But typically for Stu and I, it's not a result of a lack of effort. It's more because we're so packed with active duty and everything we're doing. So I know when I haven't accomplished something, like, hey, Stu will be like, Goody, did you sign those closing documents? I'm like, oh, I know he's going to ask me. And my answer is no. And it's uncomfortable every time. So it's built in, right? That accountability is built in, and it forces action, and it drives prioritization, time management, all these things that are so important. So I think that it's not just about, it's having a good accountability partner. It's having a regular battle rhythm to help you get to that point. Because if you have someone that's going to, because our business is based on both of us doing stuff. And if I don't do it, there's a real consequence to that, and it'll be an impact to him or vice versa. And that's not a place you want to be, but it also elevates our game, which I think, those are all points you're talking about, being very intentional with that entire process. So that's the
number of times I see post, because we have like a separate Facebook group just for the accountability groups. And so everybody meets on Mondays or Tuesdays, all the different groups. And I see posts in there like, I was not going to have, 0%. I just spent 3 hours driving for dollars so that I could get my numbers in. And, but the interesting thing is you talk about a packed schedule. And I was having this conversation earlier with some of my real estate lady friends. And we were talking about this idea that when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. And having that packed schedule, because I think we all operate that, it's like we thrive in that like chaos, right? And the idea of the accountability groups is, we cheerlead people on throughout it, but if they don't own it, if they don't have ownership for it, for their accountability, then it's not going to happen. I often find myself saying, like, we just finished up a session. And so it was week 12. And at the end of it, I was like, man, I'm going to miss you guys. Like, we do new groups every time. They're like, can't we stay together? I'm like, no, we can't stay together. And one of the guys looked at me and he said, on week 4, you called me to the carpet because I showed up with 20% of my actions done. And you said to me, like, you chose this as your focus. Are you going to stay focused or not? And he was like, I thought about it every week when I would start to get distracted by other things, when I would start to say yes to other stuff, I'd be like, oh, but I said this was my focus. So, yeah.
That's powerful. And calling someone back to that's a great tactic, right? Hey, I didn't choose this for you.
Yeah.
You chose it. Like, you want this. And I think that recalibration is so important, and it can really make a world of difference. And I'm going to take that on board, because I think that's something, especially like a squirrel kind of personality has to have that built in.
Can I use that for the Navy reservists? Can I tell like a Navy reservist, like, hey, you chose to be in the Navy. You should do your medical appointment this year.
Yeah.
Can I?
No, it won't work. It won't work. It'll find its way back to you.
Hey,
somehow.
You chose to be in the Navy. You probably need to do some work to actually get paid. I hope Bill listens to this, because he's a reservist, and I'm just going to talk a bunch of smack about Navy reservists right now.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, there's also a time in the season, because I usually we have about 30 to 40% fall off from these groups, right? So for every 10 people that sign up, 6 or 7 actually make it all the way through the finish line. Half of, let's say like 2 out of those 4 people, it will be because life derailed them. A father passed away, or cancer, or their W-2 job, if they're doing this on the side, their W-2 job just gets insane, right? And there's some grace to be had there. And then the other 2 realized they didn't actually want accountability. Like, they got into investing or they got into, entrepreneurship because they didn't want someone telling them what to do. They wanted to be the boss, and they don't like it. It's uncomfortable to them.
Quickly found out that wasn't really the case.
Yeah. So
that's interesting. So have you had like any like major like breakthrough impacts that you've seen? I know you have. I mean, has there been some pretty cool stories?
It's just the fact that when you show up day after day, like excellence, I think this is one of my favorite quotes, is like, excellence is actually in the moments. It's like the day to day. It's just showing up time and time and time again. And that's so boring. And that's so countercultural to kind of the American dream, which is like, I'm going to buy the next stock and be a millionaire, and Bitcoin's going to be the best. And I'm going to have this $100,000 profit rehab. And we all want that quick win. But the reality is the key to success is showing up every day. And so like that guy who, one of the guys in October, his goal was driving for dollars, was to implement the marketing channel of driving for dollars. And he committed to driving, I think, 3 or 4 hours a week. And then his actions were something along the lines of drive for 3 or 4 hours, add all the until he added, I think, 10 houses to his list, or, he had a number, drive for the X amount of hours to add these numbers to my list, mail every house on my list. So his list would grow every week. The first week it might be 10. The next week he's mailing 20 people. The next week he's mailing 30 people. And his goal was to get 2 contracts from Driving for Dollars, and he got, I think, 3 or 4. So, and he's like, I don't want to do it. You know, I also former military, right? So he's not gonna, he's not gonna show up and be the slacker in the group. But that's just one of many. It's like, or cold calling, right? Like, I'm going to implement the cold calling marketing channel. Well, that looks like calling, 5 hours a week and following up and answering my phone live when people call back, and you just do the work.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead, Stu.
I was just gonna say, and that's really hard to do, like in these times when like we're just so used to everything being immediate, like the immediacy of everything. And I can order a book and it'll be here like this afternoon, from Amazon, and everything is like now. So it makes it even harder in today's age.
Yeah, I'd be curious if you have any examples from your lives about, the times where you kind of didn't buy in 100%, but you were committed to doing the actions, and it showed up.
So I'll say that, like David, I am not a very big fan of social media, and I still don't even have my own official Facebook page. My Facebook was, I just put my name on the front of my wife's Facebook page. And now it's like Stuart and Crystal Grazier or something like that.
Yeah,
and
I did see that. Yeah.
So I did this 30-day live challenge based off of what we talked about at Veterans Live Conference. And I learned more about myself. And I'm not going to lie, David and I have had more phone calls in the last 45 to 60 days, and really the last 30 days, with investors. Daily, we're having conversations with investors. We have private lenders. Our house buyer list has gone from like a 3-month wait to like a year waiting list. And I honestly can say a lot of it is just being us throwing ourselves out there and being transparent and being on social media, going live. Because nothing else really changed. Like we didn't really like do anything different. And I still don't like social media, but I can see that it's a powerful tool if it's used correctly and you have a voice and you have a mission with it. And
Bill's he launched this 500K like money raising challenge, which I think is probably one of the biggest struggles that investors have, is getting over that self-doubt of that imposter syndrome of like, people aren't going to lend to me because I'm not good at it. And I don't know.
That's me.
The success we're seeing, and it's just that daily action of, and so many uncomfortable people. They're like, I hate doing this. It's, oh my gosh, 3 people just called me, and I have $150,000 lined up in investing. You just got to do the actions consistently.
Yeah, and I think for me, there's just some mindset stuff. Even going into taking command, trying to rectify in my mind how much I love, I've loved the service over the last 18 years, but also absolutely just love Storehouse, and wrapping my mind around the choosing to see the positive outlook of even potentially my schedule filling up with phone calls of people that are not interested in buying, with mixed in with people that are interested in buying from Storehouse. And then, on the Navy side, all those phone calls, and just really being very intentional about shifting how I view those challenges and how I approach those conversations. And I've gotten just pure joy from all of it. And it also forces, I think, what you said about the saying yes is saying no to things, being very intentional with that, understanding what you're saying yes and no to, and prioritizing those efforts, just being very intentional with all that stuff. And then I have to get on. I know I have to get on to the social media. I don't want to say bandwagon, but to be very intentional with that tool and see it as a tool. A mindset of that as a tool to help us build our business is key. And then there's also other aspects to it that aren't just like, it's just not black and white business, right? There's amazing pictures that I've seen of people that I may not have connected with for a long time. There's, challenges and different things that are that are cropping up as a result, and just being able to realizing now there's forcing myself to build all that in and refine that is also going to make me a better dad and husband, right? Mm-hmm. My goals are time freedom. Mm-hmm. So I want to make my kids breakfast in the morning, take them to school, pick them up in the afternoon, and be like the dad that does all that stuff, be at the sporting events, and also build this business. So like that requires a significant amount of yeses and nos, and it requires a significant amount of planning and scheduling and all that stuff that's important to me that drives my why. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, building this business for Stu and I to, one, it's our ministry, it's a mission, and our goals are giving. We want to be giving millions of dollars a year. We want to be flipping the tithing principle on its head. I just had this conversation with Adam Whitney, one of our just awesome dude, Marine, but flip that on its head and give away 90% of our money and keep 10. How awesome is that? Awesome. It's not something that you have to, I wouldn't advertise that when we're doing it or give those numbers, anything like that. But to have that drive our why, like those things are really important. So those are some breakthroughs. And then I just have to take action on that.
Yeah. And being disciplined about it. I mean, I think that's it, right? Like you could set a whole accountability session with the both of you, right? About how do we add in social media to our lives? What does it look like? And what are the actions we need to consistently take? It's probably, like you agree to respond to messages on one day and I respond on the next day, or, whatever. But the cool thing about social media is before 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if you wanted to market your company, I mean, it was this black box. You'd hire somebody, now it's so accessible. I mean, I know it's annoying because it's accessible. It feels like it's always there, but it is just such a powerful tool.
Yeah. And we could stay here forever and talk to you, but I want to make sure I touch on one thing quickly. You, in your presentation, I would encourage everybody I recently posted it back on LinkedIn, the link to get to the Veterans Live REI and to be able to purchase all these presentations, yours being one of those. But you talked about DVPGA, and there's two things I'd like to touch on very quickly. One, can you just define those for us and just quickly run through that? But also, I thought it was really interesting. You said as entrepreneurs, a lot of people are very the D, right? The dream. Mm-hmm. And I would say that as military entrepreneurs, a lot of us are either on the D or we're on the A side, we're just action and not a lot of thought. We're just action oriented people. And there's 3 other letters in the middle of that. Mm-hmm. And that developing that stuff goes back to taking 7 years, right? Yeah. To refine that. If you could just briefly, right. Absolutely. To get to the point that you even have an acronym, that's 7 years. To really develop that acronym, that's a lifetime. But if you could just touch on that.
You've got the dream, right? And so I challenge everybody to sit down and just think about like, what's your overarching driver? What's the thing that like lights you up, that causes joy inside of you? So for me, that was the idea of real estate investing when I started, and flipping a house. Like just the thought of taking something ugly and turning it into something beautiful really kind of lit me up. So that became my dream. And then the vision of the first times is taking that dream of I'm going to flip a house someday and turning it into like, what does that look like? I'm going to be a rehabber, really kind of making it clear. The other story I tell is like, if saying I want to own a house is so different than saying I want a 2-story yellow house with a beautiful deck and a front porch and ferns hanging on it and 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. Like it can be such a fun exercise to really sit down and just like close your eyes for a second and think about what you want to build. If we're all here because we want to build something, what do you want to build? You might want to build a house. I might want to build a sandcastle, like what are we building? Or a machine, right? And really just flesh that out. And that's your 5-year, 10-year. People say 10-year, but look, I make 5-year plans and they change at year 3 every time. So, and then the plan is 12 months. The plan is like, what your actions are leading towards. Once you make that dream and that vision, you kind of put it in a box. And then you say, that's great. I equate it to, I'm a swimmer. So I don't know if you've ever done open water swimming, but I do triathlons, and there's these buoys out in the water, right? And so you start swimming and you look up and you get your bearings, right? Like that's the buoy I'm swimming towards. But then you just put your head down for a little bit and you just go. Because you can't, if you were to swim always, looking up at the buoy, it's inefficient. You're not really paying attention. You're not doing what you need to do in that minute. You're actually kind of just floundering. So that's how I equate, like you're dreaming your vision, you put it out there. Then you just focus on like, okay, I got to get 10 yards. So what does 10 yards look like? And then you've got your goals. And that's the 3 to 4 things that you need to do. So like I'm going to rehab a house example, that in the next 12 months, if I want to rehab a house, I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to start making offers, and then I'm going to get contractors and actually rehab a house. Like that's probably the 3 steps to doing it. And then once you've got those 3 steps, you just pick one and you say, okay, what are the actions, right? Like if I need to get contractors, well, I better get on the phone. I better get them walking through the property. If I'm going to make offers, like when I first started rehabbing, I read this somewhere, and it's probably the best advice I'd ever gotten in any real estate investing, which was, I'm going to have to think about 100 properties, probably go see 20 or 30, make 10 to 15 offers to get 1 contract. And that right there, that's kind of your set of actions, right? In the DVPGA thing. But the cool thing about it was that every time I got turned down, I would turn to my husband and I go, one no closer to a yes. I'm getting there. Like it's coming. It's a numbers game.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That is great. And I think it just highlights where people should be. It's not just the dream and the action. There's so many steps. And when you're that intentional, magic happens, right? It's not luck. It's where opportunity meets hard work.
Yeah, that's great. And Jocko's, I think, given credit for this quote, but I heard it way before kind of he coined it, but the discipline equals freedom. I mean, like lay out your plan and then just be disciplined in it. And then that's where the freedom comes from.
I told him that one time, a long time ago.
It was you. I knew I heard it before.
Yeah, the luck thing too. It just came up with that. It's really.
You're just like quoting other people and just taking credit for it.
No, for anybody listening, if that's your quote, I'm totally joking. Disclaimer, legal, all that. It's not my quote.
Don't come after me. Yeah, and the interesting thing is on the journey, you're gonna you'll put your head up and to use the buoys. Like I might be past a buoy, right? And now it's time to look to the next buoy. And that's kind of where I was last year. I was like, all right, I did that thing. I reached this buoy. What's the next one look like?
That's good stuff. I could probably talk for another hour with you on this subject.
Yes. My family would like me to say yes to them right now. So
I know, me too. I heard kids in the background yelling and screaming, and I don't know if that's screams of joy or if that's screams of fighting going on, but
mine were both. The screams you heard upstairs were both for mine too. So.
The both? Okay. All right. Gotcha. Well, Beka, thank you so much for finally getting on with us, and thank you for your patience and your grace and your graciousness all at the same time to come on. It's been a fun conversation. If folks want to get in touch with you and kind of talk more about accountability, 7-figure flipping, your mastermind, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Beka at 7-figure flipping, Beka. I will say, if people want to know, we're doing Flip Hacking Live, which is kind of like the veterans event on steroids. It's going to be virtual, but we're like building out on a stage. The people who did Tony Robbins' event is doing ours. It's
nice.
Going on right now.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be just so cool. So I would say Flip Hacking Live, come to there in October.
Okay, and, we're there. We already have our tickets.
And a reminder to our listeners,
live, but now we're going to go in virtual too.
Right, and a reminder to our listeners: use our link to buy tickets for Flip Hacking Live. The Storehouse link will.
There's a little bit of a competition, so help them out and buy through their link.
If I see someone, one of our investors at virtual flip hacking, and I asked them if they didn't buy our ticket, I'm gonna be really angry.
Real mad.
Like, this is
Real
my angry
mad.
face.
So don't make him angry.
Scary. It's really scary.
Just the price is the same. It's just that they get points in,
Really,
they get bragging
really
rights.
cool points.
Yeah.
Hey, Beka, this was incredible. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you. I know it's value add for our listeners. It's absolutely value add for me. I learned something today, changed my perspective on a couple things, and I'm just so grateful for you taking your time and saying no to your family and the other obligations for a little bit and saying yes to spending some time with us. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And I would love it. Actually, if people find me on social media, if something in this podcast resonated with you, let me know. That probably is the best compliment you could give me.
Love it. Yes, that's awesome. All right, you heard it. Get out there, post some
Thank you,
stuff,
gentlemen.
and go share it with your friends. Give us some amazing 5-star reviews, because David really needs that confidence booster to get us going a little bit more. And most importantly, go fill your storehouse.
Make it a great day.
See ya.